Well, hello there and welcome to the kitchen of the dollhouse. And what are we cooking up today? Well, my friends, another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for April 6th, the day of the experimenter. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the experimenter. We have what appears to be, what could it be? Oh, it's a gin still. That's right. Or just a still in general. Who's to say it has to be for gin, right? That said, does that speak to the day of the experimenter? Hey, who's to say? Maybe a little bit of a scientific association there. A lot of times these particular images, a lot of times you can't make head nor tail why they chose them. But here, hey, maybe so. That said, not altogether all too important. Not when it's April 6th and it's somebody's birthday. That's right. What's important around these here parts is wishing you a happy birthday, assuming it's your birthday, right? That said, perhaps this video finds you a little late. I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may be. But if it is the case, I just want to say, I hope you had a happy birthday. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly or fingers crossed to celebrate the day, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, it is the Diecast or birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if you've been here before and you know what's going on, hey, just advance in the chapters, all right? That's what they're there for. I'll be here rolling dice because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. All right, what did I roll here today? A 5 and a 2 for a 7. That's right. Oh, we missed 6 by one number. All right, why is that important? Not necessarily important, but it's just kind of nice because it lines up with synchronicity. But by and large, that's not necessarily what we're aiming for here. Because as I've been told, the idea behind it is to let the universe speak to you, or the higher powers that be, so that they can show you you're on the right path. You're essentially letting the universe take the wheel and kind of show you what's going on. Because as I've heard it told, a lot of times the universe will do that, put things on our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. But we're usually very narrow focused, or very, focused on what's ahead of us, not necessarily seeing what's going on in the sides there, or what even crosses our path. So this is to help you kind of start recognizing those things with the intention to notice them. And how do we do that? Well, we need a sign of sorts, a mutually agreed upon sign that we can kind of commune with the universe with. That's right. Your daily numbers there. Now, you don't have to go with what I rolled for you. The intention is there. But if you want to try this out, it's probably ideal you take your own set of dice and then head out to some place of your choosing. It can be completely new, maybe a favorite spot, the town square, and then test it out. Roll yourself your daily numbers, and then you kind of go from there. You ascribe directional values to number sets. Say north is 1 to 3, west is 3 to whatever the next numbers are, 4, whatever, 3, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Okay, you get it? But you go all the way around the dial there until you get to 12, and then you kind of get an idea for which ways you should go. And then you set up time limits with which to go in those directions. You can even break it down to evens and odds for yeses and nos, or left and right. I don't know. It's just kind of what you agree with, and then you lead with it, all right? That said, once you have all that established, finally, take off, see where you go. But you want to take those blinders off that I mentioned earlier, or even if I didn't mention them, but you being narrow-sighted, narrow-focused, you want to take in everything around you, because you never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. You might start to see things creeping up occasionally. Take your gin still, for instance. Maybe you just start seeing things that look like gin stills, whether it's literal gin stills or the images of them, all right? Maybe you see them pass by on a bus, all right? Let's say that's the universe's way of showing you you're on the right path, all right? So then you just take off, you lead yourself down the path going by those particular, criterion or constraints, and you see what you see. You never know. Maybe those sorts of things will start to creep up. And when and if they do, I think you're going to see, taste, touch, feel, maybe even smell some of the magic if they got a fire cooking under that gin, all right? And you never know, maybe you finding things that seem like dead ends. Oh, this isn't working for me. Maybe it's all leading up to one particular point, the universe aligning things in such a way. Maybe you run into a friend you haven't seen since high school, and if you hadn't found some dead end or some constraint that felt like it was time consuming and a waste of your time, you guys went across paths. You never know what's going to happen. You just have to get out there and try it out. Anyway, I think you get the idea. Let's get on with the birthday reading. That's why you're here. All right. Your month is April, your day is the 6th, as if you didn't remember. Your sign is 15 to 17 degrees Aries of the Aries II period specifically. And your quality and element is Cardinal Fire. Well, all right, April 6th, the day of the experimenter. Those born on April 6 have an irresistible urge to experiment with what they find around them. In this respect, they are scientific, peering and probing into all corners of emotional, physical, and psychological matters. Nothing is free from their scrutiny, and they will go to any length to find out the truth about something or see how it works. And many born on this day not only bring a childlike curiosity to bear, but also demonstrate an ability to lead the way in producing highly original material. Even in the most mundane areas, including, for instance, everyday business or workaday life, these tireless seekers will find out what is wrong. For there is always something wrong, it says in parentheticals, and they try to correct it. Their basic underlying drive is to get to the bottom of things. And of course, if experimenting is required, they may be in need of guinea pigs. April 6 people will readily place not only friends, family, and even total strangers in this role, but also themselves. They are merciless when seeking answers. Whenever they are in doubt about anything, the approach of those born on this day is to discuss it logically. Their minds are open and highly speculative, but they will always get rest, or they will usually, let me try this again, but they will usually rest their theories on results of tests or experience. And the problem comes when they get results which they hadn't expected. And in such situations, more advanced April 6 people accept that their original hypothesis was wrong. But the more stubborn and less enlightened ones will refuse to reconsider, seeking over and over again to find results which fit their theory. And in this, they can manifest a blindness which is disturbing to those around them. April 6 people usually seek the best way to accomplish something, assuming they do not have too many pre-existing ideas about it. Their openness to trying the strangest, weirdest solutions can be funny, although they may be initially quite serious in their approach. These qualities can endear them to their family and their friends, but also irritate their mates and ultimately alienate them. Fortunately, April 6 people usually demonstrate a marvelous capacity to laugh at themselves in the end, proving that they ultimately value human considerations over the needs of their ego. Above all, it is the ability to see beyond the immediate subject, grasp the larger picture, and visualize possibilities that is the strong suit of April 6 people. And thus, those born on this day are, in essence, visionaries. However, as with all visionaries, they may be out of touch with those around them. And though friends and associates may be swept up along by their tidal energy, April 6 people do at times overestimate the depth of their support, or of the support, rather, that they enlist. And the capacity of those born on this day to galvanize a team in working toward a common goal is essential to realizing their bigger plans. Well, all right, pretty interesting day, I would say, and it kind of totally bucks the convention of the Aries period writ large. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I like to provide a little bit of a commentary and kind of dive into what we read and then relate it to things that have gone on in the book or the period at large there. So let's dive into some notes, see what I had to say, kind of review everything that we got into. So here we go. April 6th, the day of the experimenter. You're said to have an irresistible urge to experiment. You're claimed to dive into the emotional, physical, and psychological with a scientific kind of approach. And though how that relates to emotions and psychology seems a bit disconnected in my mind, considering they aren't necessarily tangible, and science works so much with the concrete evidence, right? But maybe it's more about your process or your method, more aptly, or maybe I'm just hyper-focusing on something that doesn't need to be hyper-focused on. But to this end, the reading claims nothing is free from your scrutiny. You're going to seek out the truth in how things work, which is a bit of a specific anomaly this period. But if it is a hallmark of your childlike wonder and curiosity, I can see how it relates, as those traits are very common in Aries. With regard to this underlying drive to get to the bottom of things, causing you to rally friends, also family to your experiments, however, I'd say that's very novel for the period, and also maybe even the entry as an entry in the book, because I don't remember having ever come across this before. But even when it comes to the other people in the book who never tire in their pursuits for truth as well as understanding, they're not usually using their friends and family as guinea pigs. If I reiterate myself there, make it more clear and concise. That said, I appreciate this mention of a disconnect between those who are enlightened and those who are unenlightened, and the differences between the two when it comes to the acceptance of say, a hypothesis being proven wrong. Something you're going to focus on and keep going until you get the result you want, even though it's not going to be there. But then there's the enlightened ones who go off and try to figure out what they can do with that and or what that means, what they got to change. But to that end, you take an example like the likes of the medication Viagra, which was supposed to be an exploration into angina medication. It didn't necessarily work for that. They found another side effect that it caused, right? So there's a case to be made for accepting your results and then appropriately directing them versus fighting the result that one can't accept. So if you're one of those otherwise unenlightened ones who won't rest, there's a good example as to why you should maybe try it out. But such realities may speak to the reading's mention of pre-existing ideas clouding your ability to seek the best ways to accomplish things, which may be an innate quality, perhaps. But if the other side of this dynamic is endearing yourself to others through what you get into in your openness, I'd say that there's a case. I would say that for that mindset rests with. I'd say the case for that mindset. There we go. I'd say the case for that mindset rests with the consideration that it endears you to people more. All right. And that's huge. All right. So people can be totally off base, but if they're endearing, people love them all the same, regardless of what trouble they get into. Right. But you're also said to be visionaries, and you're able to grasp seeing the big picture. So that probably makes more sense. But I would say just mind the small things, all right? The brush strokes of the bigger picture, if you like, because it's within those things that we kind of see the beauty that's therein, endemic of the issue there, I guess you could say. You don't want to miss the smaller things, all right? That said, got a little bit stymied there with my read through. That kind of happens with my tiny writing. Hopefully I made some kind of coherent sense there in the long run. That said, that's what I had to say about the breakdown. Hopefully, if there was any kind of disconnect, that kind of helped you pull it together. Otherwise, I probably made it more confusing, needless to say, but in any event, that's how it happens sometimes. That said, that's been the breakdown. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, those born on the 6th of the month are ruled by the number 6 and the planet Venus. Thus, they are magnetic in attracting love and even worship. And since Venus is strongly connected with social interaction, April 6 people will inevitably apply their inventions and experiments to the human situation. They'll also enjoy working with others. No matter how much of a loner an April 6 person may seem, he or she will always have this social human contact in application of his or her work. April 6 people, being Aries individuals, have a strong Mars, which combines nicely with this Venezian influence of the number 6. Male and female selves are well balanced, it says, making those born on this day still more magnetic. All right, highly personalized numbers and planets here today. I don't think the Mars-Venus, which you call coupling, comes into play all too often. And it's one of those unique ones. In any event, let's dive back into the notes. Hopefully I'm a little more clear on this one. Let's just see. Maybe I'm not. All right, number 6 in Venus for attracting love as well as worship and a strong connection to social interaction, as they mentioned, which all helps you find your guinea pigs, I would argue, all right? And I like that they append to this interesting trait from the breakdown that isn't often found in this particular section. And this extends to mention of even the loners in the born on this day, having some social applications with their work. More often than not, when Venus and Mars come together, the planets of love and beauty versus the planet of warlike aggression and adventurous ambition, this male-female dichotomy is what is focused on when the section pops up. Here they kind of expanded out and they looked at it from a variety of different angles. So it's pretty novel and, like I said, highly personalized for you. Again, not something they often do. So it's not always a positive result either when it comes to some of these planets. Sometimes there's conflict baked in. And coming into this, I would have thought that male-female dynamic would be fighting, but apparently not. Apparently it makes a nice little bit of magnetism. That said, you're well served and additionally magnetic, like they mentioned. I guess that's just how it worked out, though. Because I'm typically left to think that if Mars wasn't strong, like they said, and Venus was or if that dynamic was shifted, that it would be unbalanced. But I went and looked at May 9th, which is the next day that has a Venus, what you call Mars influence, but the roles are reversed. And it's just a different kind of magnetism. It's more of like a love-focused magnetism, a more inner-focused dynamic versus yours, which is more ambition-focused. Even though the love and the human connection's baked in there, it's just kind of in the background more so, or more probably bolstering that adventurous ambition. So in any event, pretty interesting aspect there. I would have thought it would have been in conflict, like say with Jupiter and Mars, but it wasn't. So pretty interesting. That said, that's been your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, if it's even an ideology. But hey, we can just dive into it, see what it has to say, and then leave it here in the book. You know, a lot of the times these things will match up nicely with the breakdown, maybe sometimes even inform it. Other times, not so much. It just kind of lends as an example as to how a person might look at their life or course correct certain things. So we just have to see what it says. Let's dive into it here. The 6th card of the major arcana is the Lovers, symbolizing the love that unites all of humanity through integration of masculine and female polarities. On the good side, this card indicates affections and desires of a high moral, aesthetic and physical plane. But on the bad side, unfulfilled desires, sentimentality, and indecisiveness. All right, this one was a boilerplate copy-paste job. They didn't do any kind of personalization for you, which is very interesting because this thing is so on the nose. All right, the Lovers and the male-female dynamic with Mars and Venus. It's very surprising they didn't take this as an opportunity to add just a little bit more to it. But let's see if I can pick up the slack there, if you like, ostensibly. But no guarantees. Let's see what we had to say here for the tarot. The Lovers, symbolizing the love that unites through the marriage of the male and female polarities. And while this card commonly comes up for number 6 days, what isn't common is it falling on a day that actually is influenced by the Mars-Venus relationship. It said positives of moral, beauteous, and physical affections and desires, which I didn't necessarily see in the breakdown. Doesn't mean it applies, but they just didn't focus on it. But also, it might be because you're so focused on your experiments and that conceptual side of things. But maybe that's why it didn't necessarily pop up. Not that it's there, like I said. But looking between the lines, you have your childlike wonder and your highly social dynamic and your value of human considerations versus the ego, as was related in the breakdown. I get a feeling that it does line up with that kind of thing, all right? But with negatives of unfulfilled desires and sentimentality, which we kind of saw, and you're not being able to, accept results that come through in your experiments, at least for the less evolved, it said. contrary to your hypothesis, and this indecisiveness, which I would say is the total death knell for your results oriented for someone who's trying to get to the bottom of something. Now I'm focused on this thing, so you're not ostensibly getting to the bottom of it if you're not letting the result kind of play out the way it should, or that it does. Well, hey, there you go. All right, got to get to the bottom of things the way they should be. All that said, I think I'm getting away from myself. I think the card is very apt, even though they didn't really say much about it. But if you read the breakdown, apply what we know from the numbers and planets, lines up very nicely, outside of it being a card that's directly on the nose of things. All right, if you called it something different other than the Lovers, it would still apply very nicely. All right, it's just a nice little tacit aspect that drives it home even more, I think I'm trying to say. All right, that said, that's been your tarot. I'm just mixing things all up today, aren't I? Let's move on to your health. All right, here we go. April 6 people can be curious about their own body as they are about anything else. However, since they themselves are invariably the first guinea pig at hand, they may try out their latest discoveries on themselves. This indeed can be hazardous to their health. If ingesting drugs is a regular part of this experimentation, addiction is also a danger. Because the eyesight of April 6 people is absolutely essential for their observations, eye problems should be attended to immediately and corrective lenses worn if necessary. Usually those born in this day are in constant motion. So the importance of additional exercise is not so great. April 6 people love the social aspects of eating and enjoying meals that may be made in quantity, like pasta, beans, soups, and barbecues. And naturally, they will experiment and dish up all sorts of interesting food combinations. All right, pretty interesting health entry, to be quite honest. This is a really unique day so far. Let's get into why I say that, all right? Your health. Curious about your bodies. Very interesting. Makes me think, but I say it makes sense, all right, for Mr. and Mrs. Curiosity there. But I've seen this go in other ways also. You just never know when it comes to a health entry. But I didn't think it would focus on the hazardous aspect, especially if you experiment with drugs and the like. So there's a little bit of a rug pull in that respect when I first read this, because I didn't anticipate as much. I figured you'd experiment on things to help keep you healthy, all right? Not do things that might endanger as much. So it just went the other way in that respect, which is interesting. So careful with the drugs, all right? They also said to take care of your eyesight. I didn't anticipate that. They had a very, what you call pragmatic reason for doing so, because you rely on that for your observations. So they brought up corrective lenses. You know, typically they would say that like eyesight is an issue with a lot of these people, or whatever the case might be. Here, it's just a very pragmatic necessity that they say to take care of it. What else do they say here? Exercise is not a problem for you as long as you're always on the move. A lot of times a day that incorporates Mars into it, either through a primary or secondary relationship, they get recommendations for vigorous or what's the other exercise? Strenuous, because their god of warlike, adventuresome ambition allows them to push it to the limit, or they just need to excise all that aggression. But by and large, the Aries period, that hasn't really been coming up. And a lot of the times they kind of get the recommendation like you. Just do what you do because you're always on the move. So that's interesting that they're continuing that through line. As far as diet's concerned, they didn't really make any specific recommendations. A lot of these days they get very specific foods. Here for you, they said you like social dynamics, and so throw in some foods that help bolster that. A lot of other days here in this period, folks are so focused on their work that they even forget to eat. So don't let that become a thing either, even though it wasn't mentioned for you. We also have, like I said, social aspects of diet and experimentation in the kitchen. Again, that's another interesting aspect that doesn't often come up, people experimenting with the cooking. Though it is recommended for certain zodiac periods so that they actually get in there and start eating some stuff. But not necessarily for you. like I said, that's often missing from this period. Anyway, so, but this period's been a bit of an anomaly. It's shaking things up one way or another. The planetary energies, the way you would kind of anticipate them working, as they tend to do through the rest of the book. Aries has been kind of bucking those traditions for whatever particular reason. No hide, no hair as to why that is, but it seems to be a through line. That said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go with some advice. Remember your responsibilities. All right, beware of tunnel vision and keep your emotions on an even keel. Learn to let others discover as well. And do not disregard traditional values. Keep at least 1 foot on the ground and throw the theory away when it does not fit. All right, I think we heard that one plenty of times. Some of the others, though, kind of interesting. I don't think they necessarily came up. Could be wrong, but let's see what I had to say. I had to write it in the book because I ran out of space in the notepad, so please bear with me once again, all right? Here we go. They said, remember your responsibilities. Life exists beyond your experiments, I would say, and satisfying your curiosity. That's not necessarily a chief concern in the greater scheme of things, even though it feels like it for you. You got to chop wood and carry water once in a while, at least sometimes, I wrote here. Beware the tunnel vision, they said, and keep your emotions on an even keel. Your emotions, rather. You're influenced by the planets that both have emotional extremes, all right? Believe it or not. Opposite sides of the spectrum, however, all right? But interesting, this, just don't bogart that process. Let it go through its paces, all right? What else do we have here? I'll say interesting, it comes up. Interesting, it comes up, I said, rather, because it said you were balanced. I think that was kind of in my mind. I thought those two would be in conflict, but the way that they relate it, not necessarily. You're a nice polar opposite balance. All right. They said learn to let others discover too. This is very important. It comes up quite a bit. One person will kind of take the focus of things, kind of at the behest of the other one in a more supportive role, or maybe not even that. They just kind of fall by the wayside. So we got to make sure those other folks are getting their due justice in the relationship, whatever that relationship may be. So don't bogart the process again. All right. Let's see. Also satiating your curiosity as well. Maybe the other person's curious. You're not letting them exercise that particular aspect of themselves because you feel yours is more important. Who's to say? Wasn't mentioned, but I think it's an interesting thing to consider all the same. And I would assume it applies, as you may not be the only person who wants to put a puzzle together once in a while, all right? Especially if your friend or your mate is a Mercury individual. They like games and puzzles, all right? And they're quick movers as well. So, you know, some other folks, they may want their time in the spotlight. Let's see here. Despite maybe they're not the most excited about it like you are. So you have a lot of energy here as we get up to the strengths and weaknesses in the book. So you know what? You may just be overpowering that other individual. In any event, I think I'm harping on this a little bit too much. Just keep going. They said don't disregard traditional values. All right, just keep 1 foot rooted on the ground. And I can't help but think this is about taking undue risks. Otherwise, I don't really know where they're coming at this from. So maybe with the drugs especially, you know, more traditional conservative values say don't do that, all right? And you're like, hey, you know what, I got to throw caution to the wind because I got to prove my hypothesis, all right? That's really all I could come up with as to why they would bring that up. Maybe I missed something. So consider at least the conservative approach, I would say. Temper your drive to excitement to get the thing that you want, as insofar as the results you're after, and enjoy the process. I would say, don't be so quick to find your hypothesis right or the result. Okay, throw away theory. They said if it doesn't fit. I think we came to this conclusion pretty easily as we were going through the book itself. All right. It's also an opportunity to let your curiosity exercise itself in this respect. All right. I would say you should love failure because it allows you to discover something new. It may not work to the result that you were anticipating, but maybe it works in another way, like the Viagra there. All right. So just because the hypothesis is wrong doesn't mean it's not right in some other way. Okay. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. That said, that's your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get a meditation. Let's see what it says here. Here we go. Quick and concise. Nothing is insignificant. Oh, I like this one for you. I really do. Once again, nothing is insignificant. All right. Your birthday, your meditation. I'm not going to tell you why I think it's really good for you. All right. Kind of defeat the purpose of being a meditation. So once again, nothing is insignificant. Yeah. All right. I hope you draw something from it. That's it. That's been your meditation. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's see where you got the girth and we otherwise maybe a little more atrophy if you like. All right, your strengths. You're innovative, you're magnetic, and you're a visionary. All right, but your weaknesses, oh, what could those be? Oh, I think we know in no small part, but let's see what they have to say. Your weaknesses, you're one track, it says. I think that's a new one. You're manic, it says, and you're overwhelming. Oh, very interesting. I don't know that I picked up on those last two. Manic, I wrote the definition down here so we can just get a little bit more of, you may know, but let's see for those who don't. Over the top, level energy, mood, or behavior. Over the top, crazy little bit there. Maybe not necessarily crazy, but just energetic. You got those two forces coming together for that explosive, maybe not explosive, but manic expression there. A lot of the times I like to make the case that our strengths can help us overcome our weaknesses, but also that our weaknesses can be strengths in and of themselves. So let's see if I can make a case here. You're innovative, magnetic, and visionary. Innovative, I would say you're going to find interesting ways to overcome your weaknesses, all right? Maybe even novel ways. Magnetic, hey, you might draw in the people necessary to help you solve the problem or help you get over those particular obstacles. You might even draw in what's needed for as much, not necessarily people, even though it said you have that social aspect, right? And you're a visionary. I'd say that ties in very nicely with the innovation. You're going to see some new, novel way to get it done. Like a drug that's used for something people wouldn't have assumed. You're going to find something to help you come over your weaknesses nobody would have thought would have been relevant to that. That said, how can your weaknesses be a strength? Your one-track mind? Well, I wrote down here, you're going to get people excited and show your dedication for whatever particular project you're getting after. Your eccentricity in that respect and in that vein are going to endear you to those people, even if it starts to drive them crazy. Like, this guy's just so fixated on that one thing. I think it just shows a kind of dedication that other people don't necessarily have. And so they're gonna get on board to help you find that end result. So I would say being one track, manic and overwhelming in those respects are gonna just help get the job done depending upon what it is. But you got to pick your battles in that respect, because being overwhelming might drive people away depending upon the situation and circumstance. So be measured with it, all right? See the brush strokes in the bigger picture. Hey, I might not want to be overwhelming in this particular respect, or it's going to burn people out, even though it doesn't burn me out. Or I'm a little bit too high energy with this one, over the top manic, if you like. All right, let's bring it back. All right, self-awareness is a through line theme in the book, so I would say cultivate it in that respect. They didn't really touch on it today, but it gets breezed over writ large in the book. So that said, that's your strengths and weaknesses. I also often like to say, hey, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether, because they're part of who you are. Even, and I wouldn't say these ones were bad, but there are some days where there's some things, it's just almost impossible to make a case for those being a strength. So, but I still say hold on to them a little bit, because it gives you that character, all right? So in any event, that's your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is think about chasing down our passions or our purpose in life. Because all too often I get out in the world and I meet individuals who don't necessarily have an aim. They're just in a job that they do because it makes them the money and it puts food on the table, keeps house over their head. But they aren't necessarily enjoying life. They're just getting out of bed and they're doing the same old routine. And I think one part, or one integral aspect of making life fulfilling is having a purpose, something to drive for, something that gets you doing backflips out of bed to get right back into the slot, right? Sometimes if we find something we love doing, we're just going to keep after it until our bodies physically make us throw in the towel for a little while and get some rest. I love that feeling. Like, I got to get back after it. I just got to get to sleep so I can get right back after it. And if there's anything I can wish for folks on their birthday, it's that. It's that you find that dynamic. If you already have it, well, hey, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you. But for those of you who don't, hey, maybe we can see the people who share your company and take some inspiration with what they did with their lives or what they're doing with their lives to fulfill getting put in the book. And if, those aren't things we're interested in, hey, fine. But maybe it gets you thinking about what you need to do or the work you need to put in to start figuring that out for yourself. So let's look at it from that perspective as we dive in with those born on this day. Let's get into it here. We start off with James Watson, the DNA co-discoverer and the U.S. Nobel Prize-winning biologist. There's that scientific aspect there. Interesting. We also have Harold Edgerton, a physicist and a strobe inventor, another experimenter. Or strobe inventor, rather, experimenter. We also have Harry Houdini, all right, the illusionist and the exceptional escape artist. Everything from straitjackets to submerged and padlocked trunks, it says. We have John Scully, corporation executive and Apple computer president. We also have Richard Alpert, also known as Baba Ram Dass, and an LSD experimenter and guru. We also have Janet Lynn, 5-time U.S. champion figure skater. We also have Anthony Fokker, F-O-K-K-E-R. I'm not quite sure how you say it proper. Dutch airplane manufacturer. We also have D.W. Douglas, another airplane manufacturer. Merle Haggard, the country western singer, 25 country number ones, and archetypical hard life, it says. Travel as an Okie to California in a boxcar. Interesting. We also have Andre Previn, a conductor and a London Symphony Orchestra, and a pianist and a composer. We also have Charlie Rouse, a tenor saxophonist and a leading interpreter of Thelonious Monk's compositions. We also have Jerry Mulligan, a jazz baritone saxophonist and a composer. A lot of saxophonists today. We went a little spate of time with no saxophonists, but usually it was like every day there's at least one. And you guys picked the trend back up here. We also have Peter Tosh, a Jamaican reggae artist and a founding member of the Wailers. We also have Barry Levinson, a film director of Tin Men and Rain Man. We also have Butch Cassidy, the outlaw. Billy D. Williams, a film and TV actor. Gustave Moreau, French symbolic allegorical painter, it says. Interesting. I have to look up some of his work. What was the name again? Gustave Moreau. We also have Michelle Gillum Phillips, a singer of the Mamas and the Papas. We also have James Mill, a British historian and a political economist. And Ian Paisley, a Northern Ireland's political leader and Protestant clergyman. All right, hey. Couple in there I recognize. Sometimes that's not the case. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. Except to say, your season is spring, your sign once again is Aries of the Aries II period specifically, and your quality and elements, like I said at the top, is Cardinal fire. That's a different subject for another video. That said, this has been April 6th, the day of the experimenter. All right, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Just Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you want to dive in more, find out more about some of your friends and family, what their so-called birthdays all about, if you like. That said, this particular book is great at parties or social events, something where you want to get the ball rolling in a different, unique, abstract way. Hey, read them their birthday. It's bound to stir up some conversation, for better or for worse, all right? That said, that's it for the book. It's not altogether all too important, not when it's somebody's birthday. That's right. So once again, like I said at the top, I want to wish you a happy birthday. So happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us to find out more, hey, I just want to say thank you for the pleasure of your time, and I hope to see you for your birthday. All right. Like I said, the affiliate link's down in the description, and I mentioned that once again just to say I also have a little birthday message right below that for the birthday boys and girls. So go check that out if you just want a little personalized message from me. So that said, that's been your birthday once again. Hey, don't forget to not focus on what you think it's gonna be, but what it might be or what it might end up being. All right. See the finer brushstrokes for the bigger picture. All right, the forest for the trees, if you like. In any event, that's all for me. You heard it here once again. Happy birthday. All right, take care of yourselves.